So, David, if you would care to read your weekly missile.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
About 30, a little over 30 years ago, Gene and Carolyn Shoemaker and I discovered a comet that was most unusual. And 14 months after we discovered that comet, which was called Shoemaker Levy 9, it collided with Jupiter. And it was the first time in the history of humanity
Mm-hmm.
that we were ever able to actually watch what happens when two major objects in the solar system collide with each other. About a year later, a pianist named Ken Miedema wrote and sang the following song. And it goes like this. Because one of the things that I said in the lecture that I gave is that we considered the comet not so much a comet, but a sailing ship. And the sailing ship was about, as the comet's collision to Jupiter was about the same as a sailing ship coming home. And here is the song. Daddy, come look at the evening sky to the edge of tomorrow's dawn. It's 4 billion years old. It's a mighty ship, and it goes sailing on and on. Daddy, come look at the evening sky and to the wonders that we'll see, and we'll follow the course of that great sailing ship till the ship comes sailing home. Thank you very much. Back to you, Marty.
Thank you, David. Okay. Actually, there's something, if we get to this, a particular point, this is going to be sort of like a comet that we have seen before. Okay, and we'll get to that point. So what David is talking about does pertain to our readings. I'm not sure if I have the right spot because I had the book fly open and the page marker flew out, and I'm not 100% sure. Are we beginning Numbers 30?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a lucky guess on my part.
It's called Ribbon.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
No, actually,
Uh-oh.
we're not.
Where are we?
We're at 31 verse 2.
Ah,
Oh, we did this already with the vows?
31 verse 2. Yeah, because we started with a very brief,
We finished the vows already?
No,
yeah, I
no.
think so.
Yeah, did we?
Wait a minute. Am I confused here? No, it is chapter 30. I apologize.
Okay, that's all right.
My pages were sticking together.
Okay, that's okay.
30 verse 2.
So we have some interesting book issues today. So it'll be good. So David, if you would start with chapter 30, verse 1,
Okay,
and go and finish with at the end of verse 3.
okay, here we go. And Moses told the children of Israel according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. And Moses spoke unto the heads of the tribes of the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. When a man voweth a vow unto the Lord, or sweareth an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do so according he shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth.
Okay. Now, uh, so any first, like as usual, I'd like to ask if there are any questions, comments, whatever. And Rabbi Mary is floating in space. Yeah, she got it. Okay. Uh, any so uh the, do verses 1 and 2 is everyone satisfied with that?
Well,
Yes,
well,
go ahead,
one
Rabbi
one
Norman.
was in the previous
Yes, and we discussed
parsha.
that
We talked
last
about
week.
that.
That's where we
Right,
ended last
right.
week.
But
Okay.
I think the two things that leap out immediately are, one is that why was Moses addressing this only to the heads of the clans or the heads of the tribes? Okay.
Mhm.
Was it meant only for them, or was it meant for everyone? And by everyone, of course, we only meant the men, not the women
Right.
or the children.
That is correct.
Right.
Uh, any comments on that? The rabbis asked the question. Any comments or answers?
How about a question of what do they mean by an oath? Yeah,
That's a
is
very
it like,
important one.
hey, I'll stop by tomorrow and drop that off, and then I don't make it? Or is it, I will do something very major and then don't carry through? So I don't understand what they're meaning by an oath. How the depth of the oath or the size of it.
Before any ideas,
I
Michael,
think it means
Donna,
a
David?
promise.
Excuse me,
I
David?
believe it means a promise.
A promise to who?
A promise to themselves and a promise to God to do a certain thing or a certain mitzvah or a certain
Okay.
something or other.
So this is sort of uh, a so you're making a vow that to God that if you do this, I will do that. Is that what you mean, David?
I believe so, yeah. And it's not exactly a promise, perhaps, but
Or if you do this for me, I will do this for you.
yeah, or something like that,
Okay.
or just something like I took an oath maybe 60 years ago, and the oath was that I was going to start to search for comets in the night sky. And I have the feeling that God answered, well, good luck to you on that, because you might spend the rest of your life doing that. And he was right, because it is the rest of my life, and I'm still doing that.
Okay. Now, here's but what's important about the oath or the vow?
Well,
Yeah.
wait. Time
Oh,
out.
okay.
Are
Okay.
we using the words synonymously, or are we understanding that there's a difference? Okay. Here, because there are two different words in Hebrew as well. Okay.
Right.
A neder, which we're familiar with from Yom Kippur, that's called nidre, all right,
Okay.
or a shavua.
Right.
Shavuam is more along the line of a promise kind
Okay.
of thing. And if we're following David's interpretation, then the neder, or the vow, the way we usually translate it,
Right.
is something that directly is because of the relationship with God.
Okay. You're separating that out. Okay. That's
Okay,
okay.
so one might be more of a I use the word with a small p, with a profane relationship, and the other is more related to the sacred, sanctified
Got it.
relationship.
Okay.
if that's the way we want to see it.
Okay. Because, well, it's okay. I'll hold what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Amy, you raised your hand.
Well, it sounds to me like they're bargaining with God. We will do this if you will do that. And that kind of surprises me.
I don't
Well,
want to read it as a bargain. To me, as Rabbi Norm was just explaining, it's more or less of the thing. I would like to do this. This is important to me. And you get the feeling, at least I get the feeling, that God responded by saying, it's important to me too. And I want you to do this. In fact, I am commanding you to do this for the rest of your life, which has given me almost more pleasure than anything else over the course of the years, with the exception of Wendy.
And Torah study.
Yeah.
yes. So, rabbis, any comments?
Can you see? Well, let me ask you this. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes, what happened?
What happened?
I don't know. It's fine, but I cannot see myself, so I don't know what faces I make. So forgive me if I do something inappropriate. In any case, I keep thinking, what's the difference between them? But in both of them, there is no, how do you say it, qui pro quo?
Whoa.
It's nothing like that.
Hmm.
There is no show here in the phrase that it's a negotiation and that's in exchange. But I keep thinking, what's the difference between them? I really, maybe one is allowed that someone can hear, and perhaps someone is, I promise myself, without saying it, but just to myself. But I don't know. Today, the word shvuah in Hebrew is used in courts. You don't use neder. You don't you
Right.
use shvuah. And in normal speak, just like say, I promise, I hate when people say that. I promise you it's going to be okay. What the hell, you know that it's going to be okay. But I keep thinking as we're talking about the difference between them, except that neither is not used today, I would say, as much or at all in spoken Hebrew. I don't know.
Okay. Rabbi Norman?
Well, I can't quote the exact comment, but there's certainly an understanding in the classical commentary that that the neder, which again, with translating here, I think as vow, at least my
Right.
translation in the Eitz Chaim says a vow as opposed to a shavua. They're saying an oath. Is that the vow is something that brings God's name into it,
Okay.
and an oath might be just Rabbi Miri was saying like a promise, kind of, an agreement with my neighbor or with my business associate or something
Okay.
like that.
Very
And
good.
going back again to the Ten Commandments of don't bring God's name, don't into your negotiations
Right.
unless you really intended to have that kind of force for God's involvement.
Okay. Any other discussion on that before I ask another question? At the end of verse 3, there are several words. He must carry out all that has crossed his lips. So if you think something, is that okay? Does that exonerate you from the
No.
rule?
No.
Okay. Did you want to expand on that, Michael, first? And then I think Donna was going to, wanted to say something, but I may have interrupted her.
That's fine.
Because if you think something, God can read it. God will know what you're thinking. God can, I get that from Yom Kippur services that God can read your inner thoughts. So you have to be completely pure in what you say loud and what you think and what's in your heart. So what you think counts.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think it's very difficult to control your thoughts.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, sometimes things just pop in our head. We don't have any intention of them, but they suddenly pop in there and now we have to deal with them. I can see what Mike was like about action. You might want to do something, but you know that it's inappropriate, so you don't act on it, type of thing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Please, Donna.
Yes. What you had to say, Marianne, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. And I think we strive towards, not that we'll ever reach it, we strive towards perfection, but we're flawed. The only thing that's perfect, right, is the angels, I think, and God. There's purity and in that. Yeah, I can't control necessarily what my mind pops up. It's a lot of it was based in my childhood, different prejudice and races. So that still will rear, not as bad because I've worked on it, but it'll come up with a judgment right away. A lot of my thinking is about judgment. Judging people, judging myself. So what's a good practice for me is not, the thought will come up, but it really is pause. If you can see it right away, then you can steer clear of it. No, that's not true. That's from the past. So anyway, yeah, that's what I got out of it.
Okay. But what about when you say it?
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for everybody. What's the difference?
When you verbalize it.
Yeah, when you verbalize it, what is the difference between thinking it and verbalizing it?
Well, if it's kind of a negative or a racist comment, I think there's part, not with this, but you want to hide that. You you don't want to expose that part of you. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So the only way I would share is, I'm in AA, is with a sponsor. We got to be truthful with our stuff so we can see it and not hold it in. So,
Okay. Yes, Amy.
When you verbalize something, you bring other people into it. So you may impact them positively or negatively. If it's something that's not good and not holy.
But this is, yes, Amy, I agree. The Kabbalists, talk about that what you say, it's like a verb. It causes people to react or act. And so, so you have to think before. I remember my mother always saying, think before you speak. Okay. You know, it was a good rule to try to, you know, as Adorna was saying, you know, there are things you may think, but you don't want to say because of the
Absolutely.
repercussions or whatever, or it may incite other people to do those things. But we're talking about with God
Okay.
here. We're not talking about other people. We defined that first. Okay, yes, Rabbi Mary.
Well, what comes to my mind, and I don't remember if, I think it's from the Siddur, that it says, Netzor lesoni mira, ofi midvar sheker o hevel. It says, keep my tongue from speaking
Evil.
bad, to
Yes,
say
evil.
evil.
Right.
So that's a command not to say. There is a difference between thinking and saying. And sometimes I catch myself saying things that I should have kept to myself. And it would have been so much better. Because as I think Amy said, it affects other people. Unless they can read your mind, and then it doesn't matter. But I think that the fact that it goes to someone, to an objective, this is in grammar, as long as it remains in the subject, is different. But it is a command, keep my tongue inside to say bad stuff. Actually, recently, and I think that this is Talmudic, not to speak about others for good and for bad. Just
Yes.
not to talk about other people. So we have a combination here of the neder and the shvuah and the keep your. They tell me this all the time about my kids and my kids-in-law. Zip it. Don't talk
Okay.
bad, or don't give them advice, or just communicate. I don't know. All these things come to my mind as I'm talking, and I'm not sure these associations.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Rabbi Norman.
Well, the speaking out loud is considered to be an act.
Act. That's right.
Okay?
But
That not only other people will hear and react to, but that you're then obligated to. You're not obligated to feelings or thoughts or emotions. And yes, God, the notion is that God would hear or pay attention to those feeling, thoughts, emotions, but God is the test is, whether you're going to act on them or not.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. And I need to come back to one of the other introductory questions that I threw out there is, why is this addressed to the leaders of the clans? Is I think we have to throw in the whole notion of role modeling, being held to a higher standard, things like that.
Okay. So, hi, Lynn. How you
Lynn.
doing?
Hi.
We are on Numbers. We're discussing verses 1 through 3.
Yeah, I've been following. I just,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I've been following the very interesting discussion. Yeah, the power of words is something that is a
Yeah.
thing that runs through Judaism in multiple ways. It's like just dealing with the Exodus, God did not act until God heard the people's cries.
Yes.
And there was there's something about bringing out speech that has much more powerful effects than thinking it in your thoughts. I'm suffering and everything,
Right.
but it's the crying out of the people is what triggered the response and the whole everything that followed from it. And the other thing is the idea about the laws of Lashon Hara, gossip,
Yes. Yes.
which have been debated and extended over the years, but and Rabbi Norm, I think, alluded to this, when both maybe Rabbi Miri as well. Even speaking something complimentary can be problematic.
Mhm.
Because if you're praising someone in the ears of other people, like oh, she never praises me, or oh,
Mhm.
how come how come she's getting all it can just create, even positive statements can create, um, problems like reactivity in the hearer, because you don't know where people are coming from, aside from saying bad things.
Right.
Yeah.
So this discussion, one more question. Is there a portion in scripture that addresses this right from the start?
Addresses what's
This
this?
issue that we're discussing. We were talking of the power of words. We're talking about influencing that when we say something, it can cause other things to happen. Is there a passage or anything that this reminds you of that we read 7.5 years ago? Yes, Marianne.
Okay, remember, I'm very new at this. Right in the beginning, when God spoke, let there be light.
Exactly.
And guess what happened? The sun is
Yeah.
up.
That the
That,
word was created by the word.
mhm.
right.
Right.
And,
And what
and
comes to me, Marty, is the midrash that probably everyone knows about, the rabbi that showed the person when you gossip, opens the pillow and all the feathers go out. What
right.
happens when you gossip, when you talk about someone? I think that the issue of, as Lynn mentioned, the Lashon Hara, the power of words is, I just read something about the issue of, it was in a very good book that I just finished, that why why we did the golden calf and we didn't follow, because it was not given as a command to listen. Which is an interesting way of looking at it.
Very good.
The wording that was given there was not seen as a command. Therefore, well, if I'm not commanded, I can do the golden calf. The power of words is something. I yesterday was watching a movie in which this guy goes to confess. I suppose it's Catholic. He wants to confess, and he confesses about sinful thoughts, that he didn't do anything about it, probably was sex stuff, but he just had those dirty thoughts. So this is a higher level of feeling a sin just by thoughts, not even doing it. And I agree with Rab Norman, the issue of performing, acting upon what we were talking. There is a difference, at least with us. I think so. I think that just thoughts are not regarded as sinful. Am I right, Norm?
Yeah,
Mhm.
especially if, I mean, if we want to have a discussion of Catholic theology and dogma, uh,
Yeah.
and describing the
Oh,
different
yeah,
levels of a sin.
exactly.
But no, but they do categorize certain thoughts and temptations
Right, right.
as sins.
It's
And whereas we focus more on the decision to act as a result of
Right.
the thought process.
Right.
But we have in the Ten Commandments, don't covet the wife of someone. Now, that might be in the realm of not really doing, but don't have the intention to do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, my understanding was that the way that they saw coveting was being so tempted that you are ready to act
Okay,
on it.
Right.
okay.
Just not having a fantasy, but to be ready to act.
So
Can I just add one
go
thing in
ahead.
there?
Let me do to give Lynn a chance to
Okay.
swallow. I'm going to give the call on Marion first and then Lynn. Okay. Go ahead, Marianne.
That covet also can be jealous, envious, not sharing in someone else's joy as well. That's it.
Mm.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yes, Lynn?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring in another concept to the conversation of the Yetzer Hara, because I'm thinking of the biblical phrase, and I don't remember the context, but the thoughts of the human are evil from his youth. In other words, we have a Yetzer Hara.
Mhm.
And the Yetzer Hara is a challenge for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that, we're evil. We have an inclination to do naughty things or sometimes evil. But I mean, it's part of our humanity. And speech is one of the ways, the acts that allows us to be on this edge of decision is whether we are in control of our Yetzer Hara or we're giving it free rein.
Okay.
A
Yes,
wonderful
Donna.
speech. Yeah.
Yes, Donna. Thank you, Lynn. Donna, you are muted.
What I've writ or what I've saw before is there's when you gossip or anything, you are hurting three people or killing three people, right?
Yeah.
And that's you, the person who's hearing it, and then the person it's about.
Mhm.
So that has helped me kind of go there. Oh, I don't, I don't want to hurt myself or others. It doesn't stay contained. So that's helpful for me.
Okay. Very good. Yes, Rabbi.
A long, 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 long time ago, I read an article, so I certainly can't, you know, even paraphrase it, much less quote it or name the author. And I would leave it to those who have more of a stronger background in psychoanalysis than I do. But there's some kind of a reference in a response to Freud's the initial programming or whatever, that talking through some of these things would not be considered an act for which there would be divine response. And it's an act on which there's only human response. Therefore, it's a positive as opposed to something that you need to be extra careful about. I don't remember much about the article. And like I say, it's going back a long, long way, long way. But there certainly was that connection to what we're talking about, and that Freud was putting it in a positive of that it's okay to talk about these things and not be seen as an act.
Okay. So yes, Rabbi Mary, and then
Yeah,
Michael.
I'll continue what you're saying, Norm, because in psychotherapy, what they want is to bring the person to express in words what's in thoughts and feelings. That's exactly
Mhm.
it. And
Right.
no one else but the psychiatrist is there to hear. The purpose is to spit out what you have inside in order to clarify it. So what we're talking here is also how the words clarify the thoughts even to yourself. And I think I have been doing this morning, but I'll stop.
No, I think that that's very good because then the next question offered by the therapist or psychologist, whoever, is, so you just said such and such. What do you think about it?
Oh, tell me more.
Tell
Right,
me
right.
more.
But
That's right.
it's not leading to an oath or a vow
Correct. This
or a
is not.
promise.
That's
It's
right.
ideally it's leading to an insight.
Correct.
Right.
Correct, which is altogether different
Yeah.
than but these are the different ramifications of this. Michael, you were going to say something too.
And number three, in verse or 3, it says, if a man makes a vow, this is the way it's in the book I have. If a man makes a vow, and then it goes on to say, he shall not break his pledge. So
Yeah.
that's I see the word vow as a kind of a step up, uh, uh, more than a pledge. So I'm somewhat not understanding that. And if I break it on today, that's not used. The word is the word that's used today is promise, like a promissory note, not a vow note or a pledge note, but promise. So that I just like to bring that in as a thought.
There is such a thing as um, when you're writing a sentence or in a paragraph, you try to avoid using the same word over and over again. It's a literary technique, and so you know Roget's thesaurus is open to you, and you find other words that make people may make people understand what you're getting after a little better. But it also does, if you said vow, vow in that sentence, you probably would ignore it. Okay? Because
Yeah,
people in their minds sometimes will use another word, okay, and and have their own interpretation of that word that overlaps with another synonym.
yeah. Thank that. Good point. Thank you, Marty.
That's all. Rabbi Mary, and then I'm
You
going
know,
to
as you
want to this.
say, in the American way, which is very difficult for me, I pledge.
Yes, that's right.
And you cannot exchange that with promise, can you, Michael?
Can you say that
I
again?
pledge how do you say it? I pledge allegiance to the flag of. So it's not. It's different. Oh, I get this letter. Hey, you pledged to give to NPR such that. I didn't promise, I pledge. I said that I don't know. I said that I'm going to do it. Now you heard me saying pledge. It's not that I promise to myself I'm going to give the money when it's convenient to me. So
That's right. I'm going to do it. That's right. Yes, Marianne.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of go with the flow on this conversation. We're talking about the here and now in human terms. I'm not necessarily talking about what I'm promising to God here. I'm not making any vows, any pledges, anything. If I say, hey, Marty, I'll drop this off to you, that's not the same thing as saying to God, I promise that I'm going to
Right,
drop this
right.
off to Marty.
That is correct.
So I think we're on
Two
three,
different
four
levels.
different levels here.
That's right.
Communication, thought, what's in the heart. It's say what
Sure.
you mean what you say, kind of thing.
Exactly. Now, I have to ask another question based upon the concept of that speech is a creative or act. Okay. And the concept that we have of think before you speak. And we spoke about God creating everything that around us and humanity. Okay.
Speech is God.
Did God think about this first?
I hope so.
No. Well, wait a minute. It opens up another feather. Okay. And Rabbi Maria, I love the analogy that you had. Want to discuss another feather? Moses asked God to to give him the information, okay, to solve and this happens on a few occasions. He goes into the tent of meeting to speak with God and to discuss with God the issue. And the next morning he comes out and addresses the person. This is what God told me. So does God mull things over too?
But he
Yes.
consults. He
He what?
consults with the creatures there
Right. The
because he
angels,
uses
right.
the plural. Let us do something. So unless, well, maybe it's like the Queen of England, we, the Queen of England, but it's that I would say, when people surround themselves with good consultants, they do good stuff.
I mean, there are many stories about, God has all these angels. Who just makes these decisions that God finally speaks? What does he just? Who does he listen to? Who does he hear? Okay. I mean, in wartime, you have two sides, invoking God to, that they win. Okay. Not to lose, but to win. So there must be some thought process. And then if that's the case, does God know it all? Or has he another source to look at? That is Kabbalistic too. Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, it's the Kabbalists or the mystics say that God looked into the Torah to create the world, that the Torah was pre-existing. So but this is what, at least according to the Maimonides stream, this is all metaphor. I mean, we don't know what God's processes are. We only know to speak in terms of human
That's right.
language. And so we can do it if we understand that it's not accurate. We have no idea what God thinks or how God processes.
That's right. So, so that's another feather, okay, to at least now we can gather all the feathers to back into the pillowcase and we can start talking about the fact that there are different ways of looking at this. You had President Carter made a comment at one time that he lusted in his mind, but he didn't take it, he didn't talk about it, he didn't do anything about it. Okay. So, and this discussion, what we just had, was done back then, and it's been done throughout the ages. It's not an uncommon discussion for us to have. But I just wanted to point it out that, and oh, by the way, do you know where President Carter's response was first printed? Playboy magazine.
Yeah. How do you know, Marty?
At one time, yes. Yes. And it was very extensive. It was an 8-page discussion. So if anyone has access to that old edition of Playboy, I no longer have any of that. And but it was phenomenal. The discussion was phenomenal about this. And we were just, so now that's the extra feather that still we have to grab and put stuff back into the pillow. But anyway, I thought but we are talking here about something that you don't just think about, because what you think about, you can shove aside. Okay, whether it's good or bad, you can shove it aside and never come back to. But if you speak it, you have created issues with other people, but with God, he has heard it, and he's holding you to this now. Yeah, go ahead. Go
Very
ahead, Marian.
simply,
My pictures suddenly shifted, so okay.
kind of like the internet. Once you put it out there, it's out there forever. It's like
Excellent.
styrofoam. It's not going away. So,
That's right.
and as we were talking last week with sound, words have a vibration that
Uh-huh.
affects everything around us. That again, say what you mean what you say, choose your words carefully. That, and I am only responsible for the message that I'm sending. I am not responsible for the message that someone is hearing. That's based on their experience, their interpretation, not what I'm doing. So speech is very, and like one of the rabbis was saying, in therapy, it's about why did I do this? You know, really why? What's at the bottom of my heart that makes me do one thing or another thing?
Yeah.
So if
Uh,
yes, Michael.
yes, to what Marianne was saying, or Lynn, I'm not sure who was speaking then. It was Marianne.
Yeah, that was Marianne. She just
Okay,
spoke.
yeah, in law school they talk about ringing a bell, and once you ring the bell, you can't unring it. In other words, once you ring that bell, everybody has heard it, and you can't take it back. You can't unring the bell. And I was going to mention, speech is guarded, and so you have to be very careful when you speak. And does that also go for what you write, what is written? I think speech takes a higher precedence than what you write, but also you have to be careful with what you write, not only with what you speak.
Sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Norm.
Yeah, that phrase about that he shall not break his pledge, kind of thing. All right. The Hebrew is much stronger.
Stronger, right.
The Hebrew basically says that the individual his soul is bound.
Right. That's the issue.
Right. That it's not, again, that's not just the words. It's your entire soul, your entire being is wrapped up
Yes.
in one of these pledges, vows, oaths, whichever promises, whatever. We want you to take it very, very, very seriously.
And by the way, the same discussion is held in the legal system. And the words are chosen carefully at which level enters into the contract
Mhm.
for the same reason. Okay. So yes, this is a very high, it's a higher order of magnitude. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yes, Donna.
Um, we have, I like it's Yom Kippur, right? That you
Kol Nidre.
start to, if I'm correct, you start that list.
No, actually, you're supposed to be making the list during the 10 days that lead up to the
Elu.
report.
That's
Oh,
right.
Right.
right. So you have that opportunity.
Some of us have longer lists. It would take more than just one day,
Yeah, we need to write them all down during the year. But that does give us the opportunity to take that, to try to make amends with others, look at it and try not to repeat it again. But if I'm right, but with God, he will remember forever, correct?
Yes.
So that's one thing that cannot be rectified.
It's
No,
different.
Marty, if I may.
Yes,
No,
please.
no, the point is that you have the list, you ask for forgiveness, you are forgiven. The assumption is that the behavior is going to change.
Got it. Okay.
Right? So that's why God keeps watching out. It's not like, okay, we're over and done. We can move on with our lives totally. We have to remember not to do the same misdeed or say the same incorrect things or whatever.
Okay.
And this reminds me of one of the stories in when we discussed Jacob. When Jacob is asked, okay, have you taken my idols? Do you know of anyone who did?
Rachel
And he
is,
answers,
yeah.
I did not. And he says, may anyone who did that, perish. Lo and behold, in the next story, who dies? Lynn, you're shaking your head. You're
Are you
muted.
thinking of Rachel because she was hiding idols?
She was hiding the idols that she had stolen.
But Jacob didn't know.
But didn't know, and Jacob didn't know.
Right. Jacob didn't know.
And this is why everything that was said is very important. Once it's out there, you have to be very careful as to how things are worded. This is the difference between all of us common men and like that and worldwide diplomats. They spend a lifetime learning how to speak carefully. And because words do matter. And there are lots of people who just toss out words and it can create issues. So, but diplomacy makes it a point of trying to really focus on this very topic. Okay, so that's why we hope that the people in the State Department, the departments of state of all the other nations, they're going to understand this concept. Yes.
Yeah, Marty,
Marianne.
that's a really strong point in this day and age. But I think
Yeah.
that sometimes choosing our words carefully is also a form of manipulation. That if
Well,
they
it
are
can
not
be.
honest in what they're, oh, I won't drop a bomb on you today, but tomorrow's going to be a whole different story. That we have to also look at the honesty and the integrity.
Yes.
If it's meant to manipulate, to use, abuse, misdirect people, we also have to be aware of what we're hearing as well as what we're saying.
Right.
That's how I see it. You know,
Yeah.
I've spent a whole lot of time listening to people lying, so it's like just turning this off. That you have to be discerning in what, not only what you're saying, but what you're hearing and believing.
Well, the problem is knowing the difference. Like, but in some senses, diplomats are sanctioned liars. They lie for the good of the
Yes.
country, not
That's
for
right.
their personal good. And that's where the distinction breaks down in politics. Many politicians lie for their personal good rather than for the good of the country.
That's right. That's right. And so these are so we're just re-emphasizing the power of the words that we use. So it can be hard. But for God, if we say we're going to, we're going to do something and he's on your behalf, okay, is that why he excuses the zealot? But what happens if the zealot does not do what he promised and uses it to dissuade other people, which has happened in Jewish history? When he tries, we can be falsely led by others. But if we know that we're on the right path and it's something to improve others or this is what, God wants of us, is it just, we have to say, is it just for me or does he want it for everyone? And then you mull that over, be observant and everything, put it together, and then you can put it out there that that more people are good, and then the philosophers take over. Okay. And we could go in another direction, but here we are just dealing with vows between a man and God. All you ladies are excused from this. Okay, you can have your opinion, but the guys have to take this very seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about,
Oh boy, I got a whole bunch of hands up. Michael, I'm going to let you go first and then Donna.
okay, uh, to talk about just for a moment the word integrity.
Yeah.
In Judaism, we think of a person with integrity who is upright, honest, and honorable.
Yes.
Those are some of the words that come to mind. And there's other stuff here, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yes, Donna.
Yeah, so the guide to self-improvement and character refinement, the Muzar. Muzar, is that the correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, has helped me because the guidelines, it also gives you things to work on. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about. So there are information on how to do this. We can't just do it on our own. There's the reading and other people that we need each other for these human defaults. Sure. Anyway, great book.
Also, there's another book. I don't know if it's called Emotional Intelligence. Oops. Let me try to get this.
I see it.
Oh, yeah, but for whatever reason, maybe no, it's not going to work. There we go.
Your background is,
Yeah, it has to be in the right place.
if you unblur your background, you can get it.
All right, well, all right, that's going to take time for me to figure out. Okay. But anyway, it's just an interesting book, Donna. Thank you for the same thing, because these books, they talk about emotions, how you may already have everything spelled out, but emotions can actually influence what you say or what you do, even though they can modify your thinking. And you want to have that in control. Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, and I'm going to have to leave in a minute or two, but so back to what we were kind of smilingly saying, that the women are exempted, all right? Women are not included in this whole category.
That's right.
Is that because in the biblical thinking they couldn't control their emotions? Is that because they couldn't be trusted to follow through on whatever promises or oaths? Or on the other hand, in a positive way, were they exempted from the limitations of some particular positive act here?
Yes,
It's
but maybe God thought,
women and minors.
but maybe
Minors
God,
also.
yes, but maybe God thought men were too much into themselves and had more of a problem dealing with this. I'm taking the other side.
Sure, maybe.
That we needed more help than the others. So we can argue it from multiple positions. But if you think about the levels of responsibility, the women were taking care of the kids. They were the educators. They were doing housework and preparing food and everything. I mean, their entire day was spoken for.
Right. And
So we could
I'll
see
just
both.
throw it out, and then I need to
Yeah.
leave. And again, the classical response to this
Yes.
is because while we're expanding this into all kinds of human relations, and integrity and all these other important words that we've been using in the Torah itself, the way that the classic commentators are, these oaths and promises and vows were really only related to the sacrificial cult,
Right.
and what was going on specifically for, like I said, the leaders of the tribe, and whatever. It wasn't for the general population. It's only much later on, like
Correct.
in the prayer
Filters
books
down.
and in whatever. It's only much later on that's expanded to a guideline for everybody. With that, I'm going to wish everyone a good week, good preparations for Pesach, and we'll see you soon. Shabbat
Okay,
shalom.
thank you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Take care. Shabbat shalom.
Marty,
Yes, Marianne.
I know you want to move on, but this keeps bringing up
It's
questions.
okay. It's okay.
If in fact, inside of every person, every man, woman, and child is the fundamental reality of God, then if they're carrying that God spirit in them, no matter whatever I'm saying to them, am I saying that kind of vicariously to God as well? I don't know.
Okay. What you just mentioned reminded me of Mrs. Wetterauer. She was my world history teacher at Hicksville High. And she made the comment. First, she asked us a question: who thinks that they're important? And I would say 95, 98% of the class raised their hand. There were a few that did not, and I really felt sorry for them. It's a general question. You can interpret it multiple ways. And then she asked us to look around the room and see all of us, we had to keep our hands up so that everybody could see who thought that someone else was important. And she said, after that, if that's the case, then you'd better darn realize that when you speak and behave, that you're talking to somebody who is important. And that told me a lot. It spoke wonders for the class, because then you didn't want to interrupt anyone. You didn't want to do things to, if she called on so you didn't say, yell out, pick me, pick me, pick me. No, you were very polite. So I just wanted to mention that, because that's where this discussion was leading. And maybe this is what we're being told to think about before we say something. Okay, first Lynn had a hand, and then Rabbi Mary.
Yeah, the Jewish formulation is that we are each B'Tselem Elohim, made in the image of God. And so as we look into each face that we are supposed to be,
Yeah.
we are interacting with the divine, an aspect of the divine. So it's, as you can say, it's like it's secular society, but there's also a Jewish point of view about the sanctity of each individual person, the soul, and that expression of divinity.
Yeah. Very good. Yes, Amy.
Well, I
Oh,
want,
wait a minute, Rabbi Mary.
No, Amy
before.
first.
And then
Amy
okay,
first.
thank you, Mary. Amy, you go first, and then back to Rabbi Mary.
I wanted to expand on that because
Sure.
she made a wonderful point. Mother Teresa,
Mm-hmm.
when asked how she could deal with the dead and dying and the poor people who were smelly and dirty and all, and she said, whenever I look into the face of one of my patients, I'm looking into the eyes of God. So this idea is not exclusively Jewish.
Right. It isn't exclusively Jewish. That's right.
But it may be more Jewish than Gentile.
Well, I'm not going to say it's more or less, but you are very correct. If you look at people all over the globe, the majority would be raising their hand. Even the poor and the suffering, I'm still here. I think I'm important. To help me. And that's we look at it as part of Torah, but there are multiple religions and groups of people who will say the same thing, that everyone on this globe is important. Then you should treat everyone as if they were important and not cast them aside. And that you'll find as a universal commentary. Okay, Rabbi Mary.
Well, I'm going to say something that I've been saying since ever. And many times I ask Michael, because Michael posed the question, where was it God when the Holocaust time was? Now, there is a view of some people that God is someone or something, and it's outside. And he conducts the world like a conductor of an orchestra. But the point is that it's someone outside. You can view it with that looks like Santa Claus or whatever. That's not the Jewish way of seeing
Right.
it. So when we talk about doing it to God, we have to reflect of how do we personally see what do we mean by God? And I think that Lynn and Marty mentioned the issue of the divinity within us.
Mhm.
The Kedusha, Kadosh, the holiness within us. And I shared the story when I asked my father when I was a kid. I asked my father, what's God? Who's God? And he said, it's your conscience. And I've been carrying that statement for a long time. And in my training and in my thinking, I came to another conclusion of that outside God, that it's something I pledge to God, to someone. Let's rethink what we, each one of you, each one of us, think about that God. We know that there is a wonderful book called God as a Verb.
Yes, yes.
God, my Rabbi Zalman used to say, it's a not dynamic. What word do I want? It's a force.
A force, yes,
Yeah,
a dynamic force.
yeah, and it's many things. And Rabbi says it doesn't use the word Adonai or Elohim. He uses the word Yah.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about something that's unpronounceable, doesn't have even a name. And we say that on Shabbat when we sing without a name, without boundaries, because if it has boundaries, it's something. Every something has boundaries. The chair has a boundary that finished there. And it doesn't start and it doesn't end. So even in Judaism, we talk about this issue. And as I don't remember who said that, maybe Marianne said, that we use human words because
Yes,
that's all that we have.
right.
So I spoke.
Good way of putting it. Yes, Michael, and then Lynn hasn't had her hand up, but I think she has another explanation for this going back in Kabbalistic, the Ein Sof. Yes, please, Michael.
Okay, to Rabbi Mary, I want you to please stop saying that I said that God wasn't, where was God during the Holocaust? And the reason I want you to stop saying that is because I have given a lot of thought about this, and I've come to realize that God was there during the Holocaust. He was there. And why he let it go, it could be a number of reasons.
I promise. And I'm happy that you thought about it and just that you thought, not for the response that you came about, but I appreciate that very much. And if I said something that might have offended you, I never intended that, so I apologize, Michael.
Well, I accept your apology. And the reason I mentioned that is because I have changed my mind. So when you keep saying something and you don't know that I've changed my mind, you have to realize that there could be a problem there with your speech, with
That's
what you
right.
said, that there
Yeah.
could be. But nevertheless, I accept your apology and I appreciate you very, very much. And I appreciate everything you have to say. And
Thank you,
so,
Michael.
yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah,
We
you're
spoke
welcome.
about the words today.
That's right. This is
That's
the
very
process that
important.
we're going
And
through.
So let me continue, please.
sorry.
That's okay. So I come to realize that God was there because God is all around us. God is there. There could be, and I have a, not having a clear understanding why. The only thing that I can come up with, could it be a lesson? That's a very, very hard lesson, but maybe there is a point to that lesson, and the Jewish people have yet to learn it. I have my thoughts about that, but in regards to God creating people, I believe that God creates people equally, but it's the way a person is taught, the way a person grows up, and which leads, a person to a path of goodness and decency, or evil and bad, is up to the people who are raising the child himself, the way the child chooses friends, and so there's a whole host of possibilities. But God creates us equally, and we're born with free will, free will.
Right.
And also the people who are raising has free will. So all of that has a part in the way a child grows up to be an adult and what they do with their life.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
stated.
Yeah, Lynn mentioned today that all of us have an evil inclination and a good inclination.
Yes.
And in the parable, they said, which one we feed? And you're right, Michael. Some people choose this one and some people choose that one. And once more, I apologize.
Okay. Amy, you had your
I've
hand.
got to leave, guys.
Okay, Donna.
Thank
You
you.
take care.
Yes.
See you
thank
next week.
Okay.
Well, what Michael said really resonated with me because for most of my life, I have struggled with the same idea. Where was God during the Holocaust? I am still so horrified by that today. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on that.
Okay. I'm going to, before the hands and before I forget, there's you may want to read some books by Viktor Frankl.
Mhm.
Okay. Frankl. I don't think he had any other, because it's Eastern European. Okay.
Marty, it's Man's Search for Meaning.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. And that will give you some more insight. What Michael said, I know he has to take care of his eyes and like that, but he hit on a very important, it's how you view the world about you. God's always there, but it's how you see things about you. And I'll get you, Marianne, in a second. He just mentions that those people who went into the Holocaust strongly believing in God still existed. Okay, and that's what got them through. He felt very strongly about that because That's the way he felt. As an individual coming through the Holocaust, he was a victim of it too. So it's a good book, and I know you will enjoy it. The antithesis is Primo Levi, who is also a Holocaust survivor, okay, and looks at everything from the opposite side, and that's where was God? And okay, that's the question that Michael is addressing. You have two separate authors on that, and it both are excellent.
Spell
Okay.
his last name for me, F-R-A-N.
K, and I think it's either EL or just a plain L.
There's no
Oh.
K in it.
Yes.
Yes,
L.
Thank
Frankel.
you.
And so so this debate, but you know, about where was God and like that is expressed more from that side is expressed more by Primo Levi. Okay. Yes, Marianne.
Back to Viktor Frankl, I think that's one of the best books I've ever read. Anyway, and then back to the Holocaust. There are no words to describe the
Yeah.
level of evil. There's just no way to describe that evil. But is that, putting that aside, is that part of our pride and ego that we think only what lesson did that teach other people is as equally important, I think, as the absolute horror that went on there. What did we as individuals and as society learn from that evil, that darkness? There's no words for that horror that people went through and that the whole world went through in witnessing that. And what can we learn as human beings? Sometimes we're the teacher, sometimes we're the student.
Then you want to read Ellie Weiss. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And because he's another philosopher, and he has a lot to say. Okay.
Thank you.
But about that, but General Eisenhower asked the photographers to photograph as much as they could when the concentration camps were
Operating.
not when they were operating, but when the Allied forces came in and took over the concentration camps themselves, and he wanted those photographs because he said people will forget. Okay. And so there's another source that you can go to. And the reasons why you can read up a little bit about President Eisenhower and some of the background of his thinking there, because he witnessed it firsthand, because he saw it too. And it was a horror. There's no we don't have adequate words to describe it. And that was said also. I'm just paraphrasing it. But by reading all of these different people, you come to some idea about what it was about, what it was like, and you still can't fathom all of it.
Right.
Okay, you can read on it incessantly, and there are people who do, and it is. And it's mind-boggling as to what man is capable of doing. Okay?
Yeah.
You know,
That's all you can say. Yes. Okay. Let me. Rabbi Mary has a book
Yeah,
she
I
wants to
want
mention, and then I'll call
yeah,
on you, Michael.
I want to draw your attention outside the Holocaust. Abraham Joshua Heschel.
Heschel. Yes.
So
Yes.
he has a couple of books. One is this one. Can you see the name?
Yes.
Men Man Quest for God,
Yes,
and the other one is God Quest for Man,
correct.
and it's by Heschel, Heschel, Abraham Joshua
That's right.
Heschel. That's absolutely interesting. He has another book that's wonderful called The Shabbat. But that issue of quest for God is not something belonging to Temple Shalom in Green Valley, or to myself, or to
Yeah,
anyone else.
however, you may find them at some bookstores for
Uber,
resales of
yeah,
books and things like
yeah,
that.
Uber too. Okay.
By the way, just a comment about Rabbi Heschel. He just didn't only write about it and speak about it. He walked what he wrote about. He walked arm in arm, okay, with Martin Luther King in Selma.
Yeah, was an
Okay.
activist. Yeah.
If you get to an older version of the photograph, it will show that. If you look for it in the movie, if you look for it in more recent depictions, Heschel is erased. That's all
Why?
I can say.
Why is he erased?
White man walking arm in arm.
Oh,
History is easily forgotten unless you keep refreshing yourself about things that have occurred in the past and things like that. And they were making they did it for another reason, and that is not a good way of looking at it. There were a lot of people, even some white Jewish boys, that were also victims during that time period in support of the Martin Luther King's movement. So it was a horrible time also.
right.
And and unfortunately, we have been very complacent over the years, and this issue has raised its evil head again. We're currently going through a time period like this. So we have to be very careful and realize where it comes from, who starts these things and things like that. Yes, Amy.
It's easy to become complacent if the targeted group is not yours.
Yes, that's correct. And there's been a lot said about that too.
You don't feel a threat. You don't feel a need to act.
But if another take on this, if God has created everyone, and there's some people who feel they have a little bit of God inside of everyone. Some people say, no, it's the soul that, that has a very close association with God. And other people will say that, but everybody sees God differently, as the rabbi is saying. And so we say maybe God is a force. But if you try to, maybe that's why we're not supposed to look at the face of God. Because maybe it would be changing so many different times, because sometimes it would have Asian eyes, sometimes the image would have round eyes, sometimes it may be black, sometimes God may be white, some may be Oriental. I don't know. And maybe it happens so fast that you don't know, sort of like an amoeba. The shape.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. Nobody knows. But it's something that maybe it's like a Picasso, with an eye here and an ear there, or something like that. Who knows? But but the point being, I you have to add a little humor into this discussion. Yeah, but the point being that people see God in the way they are. And every one of those people are important. So if we respect that in everybody, you'll go a long way.
In regards to the Holocaust, and a side note, President Barack Obama.
But Michael, no politics.
No.
Okay, if it's going to be a statement,
No,
okay.
no, give me
Okay.
let me say, and then you'll tell me.
Okay.
In regards to the Holocaust, President Barack Obama gave the okay to assassinate Osama bin Laden.
Okay.
Okay? So now we, the Jews in Israel are fighting against Hamas. And there are many that say, well, they're not the bad guys, which they are. They refuse. So this is a big, this is just a little part of the problem that Jews face, where they're not permitted to fight the enemy. So just
Yes,
you didn't stop me from
I
saying that.
apologize for it,
Yeah,
Michael. I
so you
made
have
an
to give,
assumption
because believe
because
me,
I always like to cut off
I
any.
know, I know your
Right.
stance on politics, and I totally respect that, and I would not get into politics. It's
And
just
I
a
appreciate that.
simple statement.
Right. So I think that
So you can trust me.
okay. I know it's easy for each one of us to get off into different examples and like that, but I don't want it to develop into any debates, that carry us further and further away. But Michael, I was wrong, and that's why I apologize.
Well, accept it. I
Okay,
accept
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Anyway, this is what the discussions that we have had, I think, are very important discussions because we hear a simple statement. We started talking about oaths. There are oaths of office. You're making a vow. How seriously do you take that vow? Okay. And the responsibility that goes with it. And that discussion about responsibility is not, it's alluded to in Torah. The word responsibility is not necessarily used, but the examples that we will be reading for women, okay, next week probably, is more of more of this thinking, the same type of uh, permutations and all kinds of different possibilities that we discuss. And it's a very important aspect to this that when you say something that you're going to do something that's positive, it's important that you go through it. If you say something that's negative, you'd better be willing to accept the responsibility that it may incite other feelings in other people and sometimes it will in other individuals, they will care what they have said or not, but if they do care about what they say, they would be more willing to listen to other people and accept and apologize or things like that. And that's what that's what stems from from all of these words that we have, whether it's a vow, obligation, or a pledge. So when we say it to God, he's going to hold us to it. If you're a male, but women too, you have to think about. Yes, Mary Ann.
So I'm thinking about this, and as we talking about the use of words. Well, when people get married, they make a vow, and then they get divorced. So much for that vow. And then they get married again, and they make a vow, and then they get divorced again. I think part of the problem is that people were too busy talking, planning the wedding instead of planning the marriage, that we don't really look deeply enough into what we're pledging or promising or making a vow to. It's like almost like anything to shut them up type of answer, like when a kid is nagging and you just go, yeah, okay, well, when we get home. That it's to shut them up rather than looking at the depth and the commitment of a relationship, personal, business, whatever, that people, and I'm speaking for myself on this, that they don't look deeply enough into what they're getting into before they commit to jump. What is that? Look before you leap. They don't look deeply enough into what we're about to commit to or say or do.
Yeah, you have to be responsible for your, not just for your actions, but when you make a pledge or a vow, whatever it is, take it seriously. That's what this is sort of saying, especially if it's to God. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, Mary Ann, the best way really, and the only way to avoid divorces is to not partake in a legal marriage.
I think so.
In other words, don't get married.
Yeah.
If the people just didn't get married, there would be no divorces.
Which is a whole other set of problems. That is a whole other set of problems. But yeah, you're right, Michael. If you don't do it, you don't have to pay the price.
Right.
Yeah, again, it's responsibility. So that's that. Any other discussion on this? And then we still have time. We can start talking about. Now, remember, we're also dealing with a male-oriented society at that time.
I'll just say one quick thing. Guys,
Yes, please.
in Judaism, in the wedding, we don't have vows. We don't do vows.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
Okay.
So you can break it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm in the same boat.
Okay. So let's see how far we get into for the obligations of women. Okay. And it's a vow to the Lord. You have to keep that in mind. So if somebody would read verses 4 through the end of 6.
Okay, I'll be
Let a
happy.
woman do it.
I will.
Okay, go ahead.
I
Go
will.
ahead.
4 through the end of 6, okay?
Yeah.
A woman makes a vow to the Lord and assumes an obligation while she is still in her father's household by reason of her youth. And her father learns of the vow or her self-imposed obligation and offers no objection. All her vows shall stand, and every self-imposed obligation shall stand. But if her father restrains her on the day he finds out, none of her vows, just lose my place, none of her vows or self-imposed obligations shall stand, and the Lord will forgive her, since her father restrained her.
Any comments or discussion?
So the father still is the boss,
Yeah.
so to speak.
That's a way to look at it. That's
Yeah,
right.
and because I suppose they're talking about age. her
Mm-hmm.
be her age, that she would not be allowed to enter into this contract of marriage without his permission because of her age, I would think.
Yeah,
Um,
makes good
Well, that's
sense.
okay. I'm going to let the women answer here. Okay, Lynn, and then Mary Ann.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of grandchildren. I would not want any pledges that they made, male or female, that were inappropriate to go unchallenged by their parents or me. So someone who is within the household of, an older authority, and I'm sorry, and then it was male, but now it's male and women. I think young people making vows do not have all of their intellectual capacities online and all of the imagination of what the implications of what they've said they're going to do. I don't think they have the vision to understand that, and they need to be reined in. So I think this is a very practical, and because in that culture, the male was in charge, so they said the men. But guess who told the male about it? It's probably the woman who heard it, the mom.
It's
How
possible.
else did he hear it?
Yeah,
Maybe a servant told him. But yeah, I think
and
I think the females still play an important part in restricting the sort of immature impulses of the young. Let's put it that way.
good way of putting it. Okay. Yes, that's Mary Ann.
uh, this maybe you can really answer. As I'm looking at this, and we're talking about place and time, it
Yes.
says where did it say that what she's in her youth. Okay, and this is my understanding, so correct me if I'm totally wrong because probably am. Boys are circumcised, okay? It's very obvious that they're Jewish and they're male, but girls are another story. Until
Hmm.
they start to menstruate, they're still a child, not held totally responsible.
That's
Once
right.
they become a woman, it puts them into a different place, a different category, emotionally, spiritually, even sexually, that they are now at a different level than they were. So when she's a kid, that's one thing. But now she has passed into adulthood to womanhood, and it becomes a whole other story. That's what I'm seeing here on this word.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's still in her father's household. So he's addressing the older female. Let's put it that way, as opposed to a girl or a youthful female. Because as Rabbi Norman mentioned earlier, that the children were, not part of this deal.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
It's
I hope I
mainly
have an answer.
directed to Rabbi Miri, I guess, because
Okay.
I am wondering if a boy made a vow. So either pre-bar, there was no bar mitzvah now, so I don't know how you determine the transition of the boy to the man. But what was the restriction on a boy making a vow vis-a-vis his parents hearing and disagreeing with it, for instance?
I'm not sure about the age, and I'm thinking, what's the age of a male when he doesn't behave nicely to the parents and he has to be stoned? I don't know the age, and it's a very good question. Actually, here I'm reading from Rashi, and and that's what I was looking. not a Netarim, and he's promising. However, if she was divorced. Secondly, the term in her use, it's narrowly defined in halakha as the 6 months period following her puberty. So puberty, but this is already halakha. After that, she is considered to be mature enough to be responsible for her own nedarim, and her father may no longer review it. And this is from the Nedarim Rambam. During the year preceding the religious majority and nedarim binding subject to her father, if she is found to have an intelligent understanding of her undertaking, that's Rashi. This is an interesting one in courts today. Does the person understand what he has done, in order to stand trial? Is mentally applicable? And for me personally, I always said, this guy was crazy. This guy was really mentally ill, but according to the law, he has to be able to understand. So Rashi talks about there. If she understands, she can stand on her own. The other one is about the puberty from the halacha. It's difficult to know, and it's a very good question regarding the boys. I never ask myself about, respect your father and your mother, what the age is. I don't remember, there is no bar mitzvah even in the halacha. So I don't know. That's a question I cannot answer, Lena. I'm so sorry.
Because I know from reading Musar literature and about how they trained the young men in the Musar yeshiva, and they did not assume that they had very good character, very mature character development.
Right.
There was a lot of emphasis on maturity and understanding your place and humility. I think they thought young men were arrogant and not too bright in terms of making moral decisions.
Right.
That's what I got from so that's 200 years old. So
Yeah.
just sort of curious about the
Yeah.
Jewish view towards young men.
Is Michael here? Because he grew up in Orthodoxy, so maybe he has a knowledge about that. I think it's a very, very good question. I don't know, probably a youth that cusses the parents, it should be knowing that if he does that, he's going to be punished. And if he doesn't know that, maybe that's the close. But as you're saying, the issue of understanding and having moral behavior and ethical behavior, it's a very good question. Maybe when they accepting in the yeshiva, that's when it begins an adult. That's a very good question. And, I look in the concordation, not now, about the word neurim, because I remember something about that. Neurim is youths. And the question is what it is, and it's regarding boys. I need to check it. I cannot, sorry. I thank to Rashi and to Rembam for the girls now, but I don't know.
It doesn't necessarily mean you. So from what I gather from the discussions, that it may be that when they say, oh, it's time for your bar bat mitzvah, and I know these are add-ons and like that, it has to be after not necessarily at the age of 13, but from 13 on. Is that because they recognize puberty? In a woman, it's obvious when they've reached puberty. In men, it isn't so obvious. And did they wait until they had stubble trouble? Or was it behavioral? Did they have to did they have to recognize, go to Cheder and study?
Well, that's kids can do. Very,
It-
very young kids at
So,
years old.
but to
Yeah.
develop a sense of morality,
Right,
you
right.
have to have enough education to
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
understand all of that.
yeah, yeah.
And so maybe there was more to it. I don't know. All I can say is that it's somebody in the field would probably be able to answer that if
You
they're.
know what, Marco?
Eileen would be able to answer this.
When I'm cynical and someone asks about the age of my kids, I said, well, they are chronologically adults. That's not a nice thing to say, but from time to time, I feel that it's appropriate. I know their age, but that doesn't mean adult. So, God.
So, yeah, and it's a fascinating discussion in and of itself. And if the group wants to go into that, just say so. If not, we can read on, try to get a little further, or what anyone wants to
I
to
would,
do.
what Rabbi Miri just said, and when you look at the legal system, you have juvenile offenders and
Hmm.
then you have adult offenders. And
Hmm.
juveniles can commit the same heinous crimes as any adult can. That it's just that the incarceration is different
Is different.
in what they do. And supposedly we learn right from wrong by the time we're about 3. You don't
Mhm.
take that kid's toy, you don't eat your brother's cookie. But when you get to, as you're saying, and you well know, when you get to be teenagers, then you've got all these raging, crazy hormones going on that
Yes.
teenagers are impossible, that their minds, their bodies are at one, like Rabbi Miri just said, their bodies are at one stage, their minds totally somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
So
That's right.
it's very difficult. And they say that we don't really grow up till our parents die, that we become
Ah,
independent adults rather than reliant on parents, and that we really don't mature until we're about 30, with life experience here. So
very.
how do you then,
Yeah.
especially if people have not had a religious background, how do you then incorporate these morals and ethics and values into someone who's never even heard the word, no less be able to spell it? That it's a whole, the Torah is just so much into the human experience, I think, anyway, the way I see it, and the human psyche, that it's really incredible.
And I just want to say before I call on Michael, I just want to say maybe that's why the rabbis wanted us for the men and also the women, uh, to that you had to not only read your portion in the Torah, you had to understand it, and also the Haftarah. You had to say, understand something about that too. So there's maybe a good reason why those were added in, not as punishments, but as tasks to see if you're really ready to assume the responsibility of being a man or a woman. I don't know. Let's go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, uh, sometimes a juvenile is prosecuted as an adult.
Oh yeah.
What happens, depending on the crime and how heinous it is. And as far as maturity, sometimes it's not the age, but the actual the the thinking and the knowledge of a person. You could have an adult who's not mature,
Sure.
just not mature enough to do I know adult to live an adult life until a certain age, and there are people I'm sure that that will never grow, no matter how long they live, they will never be a mature person in the way they think and act. So it's a kind of a difficult situation, you know, and the girls mature earlier than boys.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of variables going on there.
Sure. So it's interesting. So let's say uh, uh, the young lady is growing up in a father's household, and now she's a woman, and there's it's only when he finds out about the vow that he can do something about it. But if he doesn't do something right away, the responsibility is now on his shoulders. He can't go back, and mull it over for more than 24 hours. He's got to take action right away.
Marty,
And yes, go ahead.
can you give us an example of that? What a concrete example of that would be?
Okay, the lady, the young lady says, I want to, okay, this happens. There are books written about this as well. If somebody says, a young lady says to God, I want to be in your service as a child, and I'm going to grow up to be a nun. Okay. They don't consider her that, but if she does it as a woman, now you run into a difficulty. If the father doesn't say no, she can run into, he would have to allow her to become the nun. Okay, I just use that as an example. It doesn't mean it happened or anything, but it's literary license.
That's
That's
a really good example, because it affects life. It's going to affect the rest of the life
yeah,
for her and for the people around her.
sure.
Oh yeah, that's a good example. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in another quality around this. And what I'm looking for in the Jewish text is where it seems like there's compassion from on the part of either the parents or the authorities for the foibles and the struggles of all of us as we mature and make bad judgments and so on and so forth. So this looks like it could come from a place of compassion. Whereas in the Talmud, I think it was the Talmud that made that statement. No, it was Torah, that if an unruly son or a disrespectful son
Yes.
can be stoned. And in the Talmud,
It is Torah.
but in the Talmud, they said, well, you need to have two witnesses and blah, blah, blah. They tried to make it so you could never carry it out.
Right.
But
Right.
from the Torah's perspective, where's the compassion? Is it for the parents who can't deal with this out of control but physically mature, dangerous child? Or is it an example of what we call strict justice? Maybe too strict.
Well, if we are in the mood, in the creation of us as God, than God Rachamim. So we should have that kind of behavior of, allowing. And as you said, that's where the Talmud came in. Exactly that's
Yes.
where, oh no, it's not going to happen because the Sanhedrin had to approve and they had to come to the wall and things like that. I think that that's exactly understanding what the Talmud is about. Because they see, this is not, and I don't think that in the Talmud, the issue of the parent being the owner of the child, but
Right.
more the responsible for the child. So it's a good question to ask that, and that's why I love the Talmud, just the same question that you ask about the Rachamim, about the compassion, they asked as well. That's why I just love Talmud, because exactly that kind of thing, just filling the holes that we have those questions.
But in the Talmud, it's not written in stone. You have multiple opinions, Ray,
No, Marty, it's canonized. At the moment that they say something like halacha kehillel, or halacha what's the first book? It's not
Am
Shema is that.
no. Anyway, it says there, and they refer, if it's halacha, if it's the law, they tell you.
That
Is
is
like that. And
yes.
not written in stone comes after they close the Talmud, and we have something called She'ilta, in which is questions to very important rabbis in our time.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into examples of that, but it says, and they tell you minority. That's the beauty of it. Shammai sometimes, or most times, is
Yes.
minority,
Yes.
just like in the Supreme Court. And I don't want to talk about the Supreme Court either. You said not politics, so I want to, but they tell you who's in the minority and who's the majority.
That's right. It's true. It's true. Well, on that note, unless are there any announcements other than getting ready this week for Passover?
I doubt that we have Torah study next week.
I don't think we're going to, because well,
In the evening is the
Saturday
Seder.
evening is first night,
Yeah,
and then second night we will be the usual temple service. So that's Sunday night. So I just don't know what I don't know if the rabbi is going to have a service on Saturday morning. I just don't know. So we'll find out. We'll find out. Yes, Michael.
I just wanted to, I thought about this throughout the session, that based on vows and such, there's a lot of, I believe there's a lot of Jewish thought and writings in our law system in different ways. That's based on Jewish thought and Jewish
Mhm.
principle.
yeah,
That's all.
yes.
There is. You are very correct. I wish Mike Musman was here to discuss that, because he knows so much about that. And but anyway, any other comments or any other announcements?
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you,
You're
Marty.
welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Marty.
You
Shabbat
did a great
shalom,
job.
everybody.
Everybody.
And
Yes,
Chag
Shabbat
Sameach.
Shalom.
Okay,
Happy
and
holiday.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah.
Have a very healthy rest of the weekend and
You too,
a
Marty.
great week.
You too, Marty.
Thank
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.